You have a slice of bread on your counter right now, or you will by tomorrow. It is the most ordinary object in your kitchen. It has been part of your life since before you could chew solid food. Here is the thing. Nobody asks where the idea of bread as ordinary came from. Nobody asks what land had to be empty, legally, for that ordinariness to travel across the world and land in your kitchen. 9 continuous miles, 14.5 kilometers. That is how far a surveyor named Thomas Mitchell rode on the 18th of April, 1836, through harvested native grass, standing saddle girth high on his horse, on land that his own government would later call uncultivated. That is the number I kept returning to, and the more I looked at it, the more the bread in my kitchen began to feel different. I wasn't the only one who noticed, not even close. When I started asking around, I found the same quiet gap everywhere. People who'd grown up hearing that certain land, somewhere, had been empty before their ancestors arrived. Not a fringe feeling, a shared quiet unease about a word empty that gets used constantly and examined never. Everyone carries a version of this. Everyone has heard there was nothing there about somewhere. And how did this become so ordinary a phrase, when if you actually look at it, it's one of the strangest claims a government can make? Here is what we've always been told. The land was empty when the British arrived. No farms, no fences, no owners, just people wandering wild country. So, the crown took legal title for the king, because, in the eyes of the law, nobody was using it. I want to be honest, that explanation is not nothing. It rests on real 18th century legal theory property from enclosure, from sedentary farming, from formal codes. Serious jurists like Blackstone believed it. It accounts for almost everything. Almost. In April 1779, Sir Joseph Banks told the House of Commons that Botany Bay was thinly populated and would be easily vacated. That testimony is preserved in the Journals of the House of Commons, Volume 37. It became the foundation for a penal colony on land the record does not actually show as empty. Which means the bread you're holding, the one that feels so ordinary, sits in that gap, in the space between what we've been told and what the specific record shows. And then I found it somewhere else. Not a similar thing, the same thing. On the 18th of April, 1836, Surveyor General Thomas Mitchell recorded, in his own published journal, riding 9 miles through Stooked, harvested native grass along riverbanks in the interior of New South Wales. He wrote it down himself. It's in 3 expeditions into the interior of Eastern Australia, still readable today. The official record calls this same continent, at the same moment, uncultivated. Mitchell's own pen says otherwise. Nobody reconciled the two. The finding just sat there, in a book, for over a century. 2 instances, different decades, same colony, the same gap in the same place, and bred the crop, the harvest, the thing this grass actually was sitting in both of them. In Botany Bay, in 1779, a naturalist told Parliament the land was empty. Source: the Bunbury Committee records. The official account says, thin population, easy displacement. It does not explain the permanent structures later officials would find, 62 years later. In Mount William, southwestern Victoria, on the 9th of July, 1841, Chief Protector George Augustus Robinson documented an artificial hydrological complex, at least 15 acres, channels and banks, built for eel farming. Source: Robinson's own journals. The record shows Crown officials filing this and doing nothing with it for over a century. Same colony, same silence. In Lake Condah, in that same region, radiocarbon dating of charcoal buried in the channel sediment later showed the engineering was at least 6,600 years old, older than the pyramids of Giza. Source: the Muldoon's trap system excavation. The distance here isn't geographic, it's temporal. 6,600 years of continuous use. And none of it entered the legal record until modern archaeology forced it in. And in Sydney, in 1847, the Supreme Court of New South Wales ruled that all unalienated land had been Crown wasteland since 1788 because, the court said, there had been no prior proprietor under English law. Source: Attorney General V. Brown. Different decade, different institution. The same specific thing missing from the same specific place in the record. This is not the shape of coincidence. Coincidence scatters. This clusters. And bread is in every one of those places, not metaphorically. The grain Mitchell rode through, the yam terraces, the protectorate ignored, the eel channels engineered to outlast the pyramids, all of it food, farmed, harvested, and then legally reclassified as nothing. You were not issued a story about one field. You were issued a legal category waste that could be stamped onto food systems on any coastline the Crown reached. Here is what the official explanation requires you to accept. Not as a conspiracy, as simple arithmetic. At least 3 separate colonial jurisdictions, coastal New South Wales in 1779, the interior in 1836, and Victoria in 1841, each produced its own official, on-the-ground record of dense, functioning food infrastructure. Each time, that record was filed by the Crown's own officer. Each time, the governing legal doctrine did not change. 68 years separate the first observation from the last, with no telegraph, no shared database, no coordinated instruction, and yet the legal conclusion never once had to answer to the physical evidence its own surveyors kept writing down. I am not saying someone coordinated this. I am saying the coordination problem does not have a clean answer inside the official explanation, and the official explanation has never been required to provide one. Bread is the product of that coordination, whatever it was, however it happened. You are holding the output of a legal process that operated identically across 68 years and multiple jurisdictions, filing away its own contradicting evidence each time, and calling the result empty land. Robinson arrives at Francis's outstation, the 30th of July, 1841. He is tired, and he has ridden a long way that day. Francis was a settler holding a pastoral run in Victoria's Western District. He confessed to Robinson that he had personally killed 5 Aboriginal people. Local survivors later told Robinson the true number was 7. Francis made up a bed with clean sheets and pillowcases and offered to play the fiddle. Robinson refused the house and slept outside in his van instead. Leaving the next morning, he passed a human skull mounted on a stake at the boundary of the run. Francis was not making a legal argument. He was doing what the land improvement clauses required of him, clearing, stocking, fencing to keep his grant. The record shows what he did. It does not show that anyone in the imperial system ever told him what that land had been before he cleared it. Francis did not know what he was part of. The record does not show that anyone told him. That is either ordinary bureaucracy or the most important thing in this entire investigation. The record cannot tell us which. I want to be honest with you about what I cannot prove, not as a disclaimer, as the most important thing I can say. I cannot prove that the officials who filed Mitchell's report or Robinson's survey saw the contradiction and buried it on purpose. I cannot prove whether the 18th century legal theory was applied in good faith or as convenient cover. And I cannot prove what the Panicum grain fields or the eel channels were originally capable of producing at full extent before clearing began. What I can show you is the pattern. What I cannot show you is the intent. A pattern without documented intent is not proof of anything. It is a shape in the record that the official explanation has not been required to account for. I am also aware that I have been looking for this pattern for a while now. Minds that look for patterns find them. I am not exempt from that. What I am asking you to do is not to trust my pattern recognition. I am asking you to look at the specific documented instances I have shown you and tell me whether the official explanation accounts for all of them. It does not account for all of them. That is not my conclusion. That is the gap. There is one thing about the record that connects the bread on your counter to everything I have shown you. The Budj Bim cultural landscape. At Lake Condah in southwestern Victoria, hand-built basalt channels, weir walls, and stone house foundations, still standing. UNESCO inscribed it as a World Heritage Site in July 2019, recognizing it as the world's oldest known stone-walled aquaculture system. It exists. It is accessible. It did not survive because someone protected it. It survived because the system clearing everything around it never recognized what it was. The bread is on your counter. It was there before you watched this. It will be there after. Nothing about it has changed. Soft, a little warm if it's fresh, the weight of it barely registering in your hand. What has changed is what you know about the 68-year window in which a legal doctrine kept meeting its own contradicting evidence and never had to answer for it. About Francis, who cleared land in Victoria in 1841 without ever being told what it had produced for 6,000 years before him. About the courts that called it waste in 1847 and the archaeologists who proved otherwise in the 21st century. The bread was not created for you. It was created about you, about what a legal system needed you to believe was ordinary, so that what came before it could be called nothing. Budj Bim remains. And if you look at it long enough, it tells you exactly how something becomes ordinary, not through familiarity, through the completely ordinary act of no one ever explaining why it was necessary in the first place. Bread has been in your life since before you could read. You have never been asked whether you wanted the story that came with it. You have never been told what it replaced. What would you do differently if you had been